So what the cloud is and is not. The cloud is not a panacea. And I love that word. I was told I shouldn't use that word, but I love that word. It is not a panacea. It is not the answer to all your problems from an IT perspective. In fact, it may cause you more problems. So you have to be knowledgeable of how you operate, where your weak points may be, or where your stressor points may be. If those points point you in a direction that says, I got to keep my systems in-house, keep them in-house. Don't go to the cloud because you think you have to. The cloud is a solution, though. Because the cloud can be a hybrid variety, it can be a solution to some of your problems. It doesn't have to take over your entire infrastructure, but it can take over some of your systems. And because how modular things are and how they work together now, you can piecemeal it or do an a la carte, as folks like to say. Cloud is not perfect. Anybody who read about the Amazon outage earlier this year and what have you knows that the cloud still has issues. People are still learning how to create one that really works well or perfectly. We'll never get to perfect, but along the way we may achieve stability. The cloud is continuing to mature. So it's like if anybody remembers what voice over IP was like in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was a hot commodity. Everybody couldn't wait. You can get rid of the PBX. You can get rid of the Verizon in your phone lines. And then, of course, your phone would echo, or it would sound like you were talking underwater, or, best of all, your circuit would go down, or the service would go down, and you wouldn't be able to talk to anybody. And this is in the days before you could forward to your cell phone. So it is maturing. It takes time. And since there's so much, as you're going to see, there's so much money being put into this, it's only going to get better. The cloud is not what you read. And the reason why I put that in is because there's a lot of stuff out there. I put those statistics out there. If you go and you read about cloud-based services, everybody's saying iCloud is the perfect solution until you go use it, because the cloud is what you experience. Okay? The cloud is what your users are going to experience. The cloud is what you're going to suffer through when it's not perfect. The cloud is what you're going to benefit from when it is, and it works right. So you have to believe what it's going to actually do from a practical standpoint. The only way to really know that is talk to people that have actually done it before you. And so that's why a lot of times we make ourselves a guinea pig. I can't tell you the number of times clients call me and they get my cell phone because we're playing around with our systems and what have you, and we've knocked our own phones offline. Or I've knocked our internet offline. When we used to have email in-house, we used to kill our own email system. I mean, it was ridiculous how many emails would miss or bounce back because we were playing around with everything that's going on. The cloud is not your systems. You don't own those systems. You own the data, but you don't own the systems. So you're going to have to realize if there is a problem, it's no longer in your control to fix it. And you're going to have to be patient about that. You can yell at the support guys all you want, but until it's fixed, it's not fixed. Then again, if you had the system in your own house, you're in the same boat unless you were the IT guy. The cloud is your data, though, as I mentioned before. That is the key piece. That's what I tell people, if nothing else, that you talk to when you talk to a service provider, who owns the data? If they say you own the data, you're fine. And they give you ways to take it off should your relationship sour with them and you don't want to stay with them anymore, you're good to go. If they hem and haw, if they can't answer that question directly, if they give you a runaround, that's not a provider you want to go with, because that is your data. Always remember that. Cloud is not going away. It's only going to get bigger. It's not a fad. Despite what Prince said about the internet's not a fad. It's only going to get bigger and more ingrained into business. And as the cloud is the next big play. I mean, there are a lot of small IT companies that are going to disappear because the big guys are getting into the cloud-based services. Whether they do it right or not is another story. But because they're going to throw so much money into it, you can fully expect that it's going to get bigger and better. And more services are going to become available to you. So that's our contact information. Are there any other questions before I show this final slide? Yeah.
From a Are there some systems that don't work well with cloud versus some that are excellent to work with the cloud?
She asked, are there some systems that work well with the cloud versus some systems that don't? That's a yes and no answer. It's a lot more involved than I could probably give an answer for. The real things that work well in the cloud: email, phone, any application to where you just have data stored that you need to gain access to from a distributed or an ease of access capability. There are other systems that don't work real well. I mean, you can't edit a video in the cloud if you're trying to do a real-time stream of it and what have you. But you can keep video in the cloud. YouTube's a perfect example. I mean, if you put videos up there and what have you, you can keep it up there. But you can't necessarily edit it up there. So, I mean, it really depends on what the system is and really what you want to do with it. Anyway. Yes?
Actually, I'm not so sure if you covered the security part.
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Because, I'm not so sure if
the question was about the security of the cloud. Your situation, without knowing the details, I couldn't address it directly, but what I can say is that for the most part, the cloud-based providers that are reputable, that have been around a while, that have a track record, that have referenceable clients, they're pretty good. I mean, we've been on the cloud in a variety of different services since we started, but we only go with people that we know that have a background or have a history along those lines. Your situation, I mean, it could have been a problem with the email server itself. It's not even an external user. I'm not saying it's perfect. As I said, the cloud's not perfect. There are capabilities. We had a question before about what's the responsibility of a cloud service provider should they lose your data. That still has to be determined. So it's still, as it evolves and what have you, those questions will be answered. I unfortunately can't answer them right now. For whatever issue that you referenced, that would be something I'd have to look at before I can give you an answer. Because I don't want to blame somebody and then it just turns out to be a system glitch.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Oh, okay.
One other thing I'd probably bring up to someone shopping around for these services is financial stability of the company.
Very true.
With the server farm.
Yes. Well, that's why one of the things that we talk about are the history of that company that you're going to, the reputation of the company you're going to, because the question was the financial stability of the vendor is actually a very key one, which is why we never put our email with anybody on a hosting provider before we actually went with Microsoft, because as of right now, Microsoft does not look like they're going to be going out of business anytime soon. So along those lines, that actually works very well for us. We've actually had, though, used hardware systems or software systems of people who actually went out of business. And that does create a problem. That's why your key is access to the data. Access to the data will always be the key. Because most cloud providers and what have you, if they're going to go out of business, they're either going to sell or else they're going to notify you, for the most part, if they have honest people, that, hey, we're about to go out. And if we go out, you're going to have to take your business elsewhere. So they'll give you a heads up. One of the examples of that is, do you know Covad? Covad's they were a DSL provider, and then they expanded out to doing T1s and then hosted voice over IP and the such. But they decided to shut down their hosted voice over IP service. And so they gave their clients 60 days notice that, hey, we're going to shut it down. We're going to go out of business, at least in this type of business, because they got acquired by a couple of people and they're now Megapath. So what they did was that they notified all their clients and gave them 60 days to find somebody else to go to. So that's what you would hope for. But that's why you do research, you ask for references, you go online, you see if there's any feedback or what have you. But I agree, financial stability is a big key on that front. Along those lines, I want to thank you for coming. We still have the room for another 20 minutes. There's still a lot of food back there, so if you've got a baggie with you, a doggy bag, you can take it with you. And thanks very much.